whatever we speak about today is applicable to emotions overall, but what I want to talk about specifically is when our emotions take over us, right? Does that happen to any of us? Sometimes. So just a review of last week. It's just going to be a little simpler if you get the chance to also look at it, but you don't have to. Hopefully I'll make today's lecture clear enough that it will be understandable with that last week. On the topic of tefillin, Rabbi Hirsch says that just thinking about righteousness and love is not enough. Thinking about how to be moral, how to be righteous, thinking about love, just feeling love is not enough. Symbolic words and actions are necessary in order that they may become stamped on our soul and preserved within us, and we're able to give it over to others. So something about what's in our neshama, what's in our minds and what's in our hearts, and we do action with it, it's able to put a stamp on our neshama. It's able to bring that act into our soul and actually elevate our soul. This is a topic that very much so applies to marriage and to intimacy in marriage. This is one of the things that I talk about when I talk about that topic. So what is it here with tefillin? If you think about the tefillin, it's on the head, it's around the arm, and you feel it in your heart. It's where the three aspects we spoke about last week, the mind, the heart, and the body, are what? Connected, literally intertwined. And we talked about the female power, right? The lamed. Lev mevin da'at is the heart that understands the mind, is that when our heart and our minds are connected, that's when our power is. Right? This is one of the things we spoke about. Does this all make sense, even if you didn't hear the lecture last week? Okay. We spoke about Hannah, and one of my favorite characters, but I think every character I learn about becomes my favorite character. One of my favorite characters in the Torah. How first she was very emotional and very sad and depressed in not having children. And she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't drink, and she cried a lot. But did anything happen at that point? No. She continued to not have children, unfortunately, and the sadness continued. But then we spoke last week about how something shifted, and she took her sadness and she made things happen through it. And not only did she actually achieve, was she able to get what she wanted, as to have one of the tzaddikim of the generation, is that she actually also taught us how to do tefillah. What she did with her pain became a symbol for what we're supposed to do with our pain. She ate, she drank, she got up, she moved her pain into action of hope and movement and asked Hashem to respond to her. She didn't sit in it and despair in it and just say, this is my state, this is it, it's over, I'm just desolate. I'm like a desert, there's nothing here for me. She took it and she said, Hashem, I want more from you. I need this, I want to be able to give this to you, but I also need this from you. She took the pain and she fueled her tefillah. That pain gave the energy to the tefillah. So this idea of the pain either dragging us downwards into depression, into lack of movement, or making us move and make changes. So these are some of the ideas we're working with. Then last week we spoke about emergency and how we respond in emergency. How do we respond in emergency? Fast, to the point. We have to figure things out right away, right? And we talked about an example last week about how if we need to grab a kid from the street, or we have to run out of the house. We're not thinking about, whether or not we should bring things with us so that we can have an easier way out. Or, let me just grab that book that I was in the middle of, right? When we react in emergency, our body takes over and we move. Now, is this a good thing? Yes, because our body needs to move fast when we're in emergencies because it protects us from danger. But when is it a bad thing? And this is how we ended last week, basically. When is it a bad thing when we respond in emergency? When it's not an emergency. When it's not an emergency, but somehow we start to move and act as if we're in an emergency. We start to say things and do things that we regret. We end up hurting people. We end up even hurting ourselves because we end up missing things that are important to us. Is this true? And then the Maharal was saying that Chana's tefillah, at some point there was no voice there. There was just movement of the mouth, right? And it's almost like even higher than words because it was without any words. It was all soul. Her soul came through the movement of her lips. And I was saying, I'm wondering, this is how we ended last week, if there's such a thing as sound that's without soul, where we just say things and it doesn't have our consciousness, our mind, our love in our words. And we end up hurting the people that we care about the most and also hurting ourselves. So when we express our emotions through that body emergency way versus the more connected non-emergency way. Are we together so far? This is basically a review of last week. Okay. So do we want to be able to tackle this? Yeah. This is one of these lectures that I have written and rewritten so many times because I keep on wanting to make it more and more simple and more addressable and accessible, but it's a really complicated topic. What do I talk about? There's a million ways to approach this, but I want to give you the most I can. So I broke it down into 3 categories. We want to get our bodies, our hearts, and our minds connected. When our daughter asks us, Ma, can I go out with my friend? And then you make a statement because you're worried about her and you feel like she's not helping you enough in the house, or you feel like she's out with her friends too much and you're worried she's never going to get married, or you're worried she's not going to go to school, and you say something like, you're just going to be like a girl in the street. That's the next thing. Can we imagine this? Somebody else doing something like this, right? So what is happening in that moment? Is this really the mother that we want to have in front of her? Where we can have a discussion with her, what's the smartest thing to do? We use our minds, right? Where we can use our hearts to show her empathy. I understand you want to go, but you could also tell her your needs. But are we that in that moment? What happens to us? Something takes over, and we do things in order to soothe or somehow comfort whatever takes over us, and it ends up backfiring and not working. And we end up feeling worse, and then the guilt comes in. This is all last week. Okay, are we together? Do you think we can go on? Do we have any questions? Isn't it interesting how we all recognize this place? We've all been there, right? It's a humbling space. Was it somewhat supportive that we've all been there? So let's help us understand this place. Because another thing we spoke about is that it takes less than a few seconds for you to start realizing, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? Your mind knows. If somebody were to ask you, is this the way I should respond to my daughter? What would you say? No, of course not. You know the right way most of the time. It's that when our body takes over, what happens to our mind? Not accessible. The bridge is broken. We can't reach it. We're just going. And then we talked about the things that we lose. When I said, I lost it, right? What do we lose? What are some of the things that we lose? Who remembers? We lose what? I lost it. Patience. What'd you say?
Sanity.
Sanity, but you pointed to your mind. You actually lose your logic, right?
I feel cloudy.
Like cloudy, yes, literally cloudy. Like literally your mind is not clear. We lose some consequences, like we have some, right? Some consequence of how people feel towards us, how we feel towards them, yes? Also, we lose some of our own parts, meaning you want your daughter to stay home and help you, but do you also want her to have fun and to be a socially interactive kid? But when you're in that moment and screaming, do you remember that other part that you want her to have fun? So we lose other parts of us. Right. Right. So this is one of the topics, thank you for bringing that up, that we talk a lot about when it comes to parenting, is that not only do we end up mirroring what was done to us, we end up feeling that that's what's powerful. So we end up actually reinforcing those same types of behaviors. So here we are. The feeling has taken over. So I'm going to give an example. The husband said a hurtful statement. None of the husbands in this room or the future husbands in this room, but some husbands do this sometimes. He said, quote, "Maybe if it is so important to you to go to your relatives for Shabbat for the 100th time this year, maybe you should visit them more often." How do you feel about the statement? He doesn't want to go this week. She does. He says, well, if it's so important to you, maybe you should visit them more often. So what starts to happen to her? She starts to, do you feel it boiling inside her? It's like bubbling and it's like coming right above the water. It's already out. You're right. It's already said. Do we even know what's said? It doesn't matter. Because it's something that's sharp and hurtful. It's out, right? And we spoke about last week, how long does it take for the body to respond? 100 milliseconds. How long does it take for it to get to the brain? 600 milliseconds. We have 500 milliseconds in between. So by the time it reaches our brain, we've already made the mistake, and then we start to feel the guilt, right? And then she says something like, let's imagine that, let's do something a little cruel, because we need to get this feeling, right? Let's say his mother is not feeling well. And he's like, well, at least my mother is able to help me. Now, do you think that's cruel? But in the moment, does she feel cruel? No, in the moment, what does she feel? Payback. That's right. Like, it's completely justified. No, but really, my mother's able to help me. Let's just be logical here, right? Because suddenly now we're logical in that moment. Now we're making sense. And then what happens? So he's hurt, but now she has access. Do you feel that now she has access? Because now he's impacted. Do you see that he's impacted? What happens next? She goes on. Does that make sense? She says, and when we go there, it's just so annoying. And then what happens? He says something back. And then she's really broken. And then she wants to hurt him back. The payback is even greater. And do you see this cycle?
Did you mention that the kids were there listening?
Yes. And then the guilt of the kids. The original reason why she was hurt, where is that? Do we know even what it is at this point? Now we're dealing with a blob of pain. Just blob, massive mountains and mountains of pain. We don't even know what the resolution is. Is it true? Now we have to unpack. We have to clean up the damage and figure it out a step backwards at a time. You with me? And then, at the end of this cleanup, we carve out the piece that hurt her. I understand it's hard for you to go there. It's just the way you said it. You just said it in such a mean way. this whole time, this has been the piece that's bothering her. You with me? Does this make sense? But to get to it, we created mountains of damage, then we unraveled, then had to ravel back up, and then clean up the damage of the consequences of his hurt. Oh no, that was too much. I went too far. And then we have to fix that, and then he hurt you again, then you have to fix that, and at the end of it, you're like, really, no, it's not that I hate your family. And then you think about, you know what? Last month, he came to my cousin's wedding, even though it was his best friend's wedding the same night. Because he says something, he's like, what, I don't do anything for your family? And then what do you realize? Like, oh, actually, he does do things. Okay, it's not that you don't do anything for my family, so then you start to retract. Do you see this? You start to retract. You're like, okay, let me take that damaging word of you don't even care about them. Let me now take that back. So you have this memory come up. Well, the truth is, like, he has put in. And then you also see how deeply hurt he was, because you're like, oh, his mother is not feeling well. Like, then you feel like, okay, that was, no, like, you know what, last week I made her soup for the whole week. So now you have to prove that you love her, right? So you're cleaning up the damage of his hurt. You're now cleaning up the damage of not realizing, not taking into account all the parts that he is provided, meaning he has been to my family before, he has given to them before. And you're also realizing there's no way he's coming now to the Shabbat. And you're also realizing that he's going to be bitter this entire week. So all the consequence of this whole entire, and at the end, what you're left with, if you carve it out, is the original thing that bothered you. Why can't we get to that sooner? Is there a way to bypass all this mess? Can we get to it before we mess up? What do we do? What is the way we can get to the original feeling? The body, the heart, and the mind. We will tackle each one separately. You hear something, it hurts you. Your daughter said something to you, you get activated, you get worried. Your son is not responding to you, is not listening to you, you have to get to work, you're all anxious, you are panicky. He's throwing Legos in the middle of the living room in front of your friend's house, you're all embarrassed. You with me? What's the first thing we need to talk about? What is activated? The body. The body is what's happening, your heart rate, everyone has something else happening in their body, but you know your cues. Your body is actually literally activated. Your heart, you probably have tension and tightness. Some people get headaches, some people actually feel tense in their hands. What? Heat is a big one, feeling actual heat rising, right? So what does your body need? I've developed I haven't developed, but I have thought about 4 S's. S, S, and then 2 more. This I've said in almost every parenting lecture, but it is never too many times to say it. Somebody said, put the muzzle on. There is nothing good. You know, Rabbi Wallerstein used to say when I used to work in BCA, our curfew was 11:30, like 12:31. And the girls used to complain, and he used to say, nothing good happens with a teenage girl between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. outside. Nothing good happens with your body when it's activated. You will not do good things with it. So the first thing is stop it. What do I mean by that? Not stop it from reacting, but stopping from touching anything else. So actually, in that activated state, I even say don't even touch your child. Not even non-aggressively, because some tension will come through. Even if you're just pulling your child, and notice the word pulling, into another room, the pull will be hard because your tension will come through your hand. It's there. You can't, at this point, it's not even your choice. Do you hear that? You don't even have choice. Your body will show the tension and your kid will get scared. You don't mean to have that kind of impact. You don't want to have that kind of impact. You don't want your child to be scared of what your body can do. So the first thing is stop it. What about words? Also, try to stop them. But notice I'm not saying time here. Even though time is a physical thing and is a boundary thing, I'm going to talk about time not during the body section. And I'll tell you why when we talk about it. The second thing, when a baby cries, why do we rock the baby in a rhythmic way? It suits the baby. Rhythm suits the body. Movement suits the body. The second thing is try to find a way to literally soothe your body. This is very body language. Does it sound silly? But are we silly in those moments? This sounds primitive, but we act primitive. We act primitive in those moments because we are literally body. Yes? We're just like roar. Some people actually describe the state in a roar. I just hear roar in my head. Have you experienced that? It's just like a roar, right? Soothe the body. So different things work for different people, but this is just to deactivate the body a little bit so it's not so activated. Sometimes it's walking, even pacing, right? Sometimes it is drinking something slowly, like an iced coffee or a hot coffee or a hot cocoa. Alcohol. That's a different topic. I didn't say, but someone else did, and it's a good idea maybe. I don't know. So that is, we don't want to have to rely on anything that's external where it could get addictive, right? So we don't want that to be an out. That's the truth. I shouldn't make a light statement about that. It is funny, but the truth is that could be a kind of a dangerous trap where we need to soothe our body through something that's potentially dangerous and addictive. So the second thing is soothe. Showers, especially for those that feel heat. Movement for those that feel heart rate, and those that heart rate being raised. And for those that feel tightness, movement helps a lot. Because you're literally trying to combat and do the opposite of what your body is doing. Because what are you really telling your body? This is not an emergency. I don't need you in an urgent way now. We're not saving people from the street. We're not running away from a fire. I don't need you so loud. I need my heart. I need my mind. I can't access it when you're so loud, body. This is not an emergency. I know you think it is, but it's not. I'm going to tell you one of the secrets I learned. This is one of my secrets in therapy. In one of my best trainings that I've been to 2 years ago, sometimes in a training there's one line that someone says, and that's the line that I end up taking and learning. And it's invaluable because it's a new tool I have in relating to somebody, in giving over to somebody, in giving and connecting to someone. Ricky Bernstein is her name. She flew in from Israel. She's giving us a training on somatic experiencing, on actually how to work with the body. And she said this line, she said, the healing is already within your clients. The healing is already within you. All you have to do is help them access it. The healing is already within you. Why am I saying this here? The quieter you, the more regulated you, the more in control you is already within you. We don't know what that looks like. I don't know if like it's the way your neighbor is, but your best self, your quietest self, your most controlled self, your most connected self is already within you. But how are you going to get to this self overnight? How are you going to become this best controlled self? An experience at a time. Every challenge you have when your body gets activated will either make your body louder and make your body in control of you, or make you just a step closer in control of your body. Either you're serving the body or the body is serving you. And every action, every one of these challenges will either bring us closer or further away. That's it. Every time you're a tad less mean or a tad quieter, or you don't say that extra line you wanted to say, or you say it and you stop a little faster, you've just come closer to your best self. That higher self that you wish you were. It's just an experience at a time. And it won't happen overnight. You walk towards your best self or away from your best self. So the third S, the first one is stop the body. The second one is soothe the body. The third one is every second counts. Even if you were a second less screamy. But will that be impactful if you just are, but then you feel guilty about all the ones that you weren't and you don't notice that you were quieter? No. Rav Kook says that the way that tshuva works is if you notice every ounce of change you make. If you were about to say that extra line that you know was like so good, but would be one of these mountains you're going to have to break apart and then dig yourself and your whole family out of, right? Notice it, that you didn't say it, and feel good about it. And what will that feeling do for you? It's going to combat that feeling of guilt that's already building up. And it's going to start to creep in the sense of control. Hey, I don't have control to not react at all, but I have some control. I could have said that, but I didn't. I could have told my daughter another nasty thing, but I didn't. Every second counts, and the fourth one, I think, is the most important one. See the change. See it. Notice it. Notice you controlling. It's also going to soothe your heart because you're going to start to, like I said, feel some sense of control and some choice. When the body is reacting, there is no choice. You're not thinking, should I save the kid? Should I not? I don't know. My shoes will get wet. In emergency modes, we don't have choice. As soon as you bring choice into the equation, your body is learning, hey, this is not an emergency. There is choice here. There's some control here. And know that best self, whatever that is, you know, the Zen that people talk about, that the other women have, all the other women have the Zen, right? Somehow I've never met them. Where are they? Where are they? They are within us. Now, this is the idea of quieting the body. But just because the body is quiet, we still have the heart and the mind to deal with, yes? What do we need to do with the mind? What does our mind have in it? Lots of important thoughts. Lots of important information. The mind has the information that he went to that cousin's wedding last month. Should that not be counted? He could have gone to his best friend's wedding, but he went to your cousin's wedding. When your body's activated and you feel so hurt that he doesn't care about your family, do you remember that wedding? But is it in your brain? It is in your brain. You didn't have amnesia. So where did it go? Your body takes over. Your mind is not accessible. So what do we need to do with our mind? Reach it. We just have to get to it. We have to get to see what's there. Let's see what's there. If we soothe our body enough, maybe we can get to our mind. What else is in our mind? Now, especially with working with children, this is extremely important. You can say no, or you can say no creatively. Or you can say no and yes at the same time. Say no, but make them feel better about it. Does the body have any creativity in how to say no? The mind is where you can get creative, you can get logical, you can have conversations, you can reason. You with me? Once you reach the mind, you create more choices. You can also start deciding, wait a second, maybe I should hear my husband here, maybe we don't have to go away this Shabbat. Your mind can start having to, maybe he's right, maybe it will be nice to stay home and just be us. Your mind can start creating choices. Maybe it's okay for my daughter to go out, maybe it's good for her, you know what, she's been kind of home a lot. Like maybe it's good for her to be out with friends. Do you see, you need your mind as a mother and a wife. Do we need our minds? I want to tell you 3 things about the mind. This is, again, one of those ways that I just want to make something that's so big accessible. The body, we did the 4 S's, right? Stop, soothe, every second counts, and see it. The body. Unfortunately, when somebody has lo aleinu, brain injury, what's one of the things that can be impacted? Memory. One of the first things that's impacted is memory. Loss of memory is a brain disorder. The brain contains memory. When we access our mind, we start to remember. We remember different parts of your relationship with your husband, or things he's done for you or hasn't done for you. You know what? He forgot flowers now. But you do remember flowers have been bought before. Your body will tell you they've never been bought and nothing has ever mattered. But your mind has different information. In the moment, you may be so worried about your child that he will not make it through school. He has such difficulty. But then your memory may tell you, he's overcome challenges before. Even though right now he's freaking out about homework and it's the easiest homework, right? So the first thing is to access memory about this very topic that's bothering you. Also, if you can plug into that, memory of good conversations and bad conversations. You can even try to remember this moment, right here, learning about it. The memory of this, you're here. You're making an effort to be here. Your mind is going to remember this. This could be one of the memories you tap into. Wait, when I said in the lecture, something was said about that I should not be doing right now what I'm doing. There was some memory, some fuzzy memory, right? Or the bad conversations and the good conversations. Wait, when I spoke like this to my husband before, it didn't work. What else is in the mind? What's another thing that can go with brain injury? What's the second thing? Language, words, speech. Language is in the brain. It's on the level of the mind. The body itself doesn't have language. It is a higher level of our being. Certain lines, I call them snap out lines, snap out, can bring you to your mind. I have 3 of my favorites. Rebbetzin Heller has said this. By the way, a lot of what I say is from Rebbetzin Heller. I just want to repeat that because she is the source of so much for me, including a lot of what I give over to you. You're making eggs. Yeah, you want to have eggs. It's not even for your kids. Let's just make it for you. Once this year you made yourself eggs, we're talking about that time. Then you hear a fire truck outside and a lot of commotion and smoke. And you know that one of your kids is playing outside. Are you going to make sure your eggs don't burn, or are you going to go outside to get your kid? But your eggs might burn. What if you don't even have time to turn off the heat? Will you go outside? Yes. Why? It's more important. It's more important. Just because something feels urgent doesn't mean it's important. The eggs are urgent. You have to turn it off, but they're not important. When our body takes over, we feel urgency. Is this true? In that moment when we are hurt, and we're going to get to the heart. By the way, I'm leaving the heart last. Did you notice that? Because it needs most time. It has a lot of power. But we feel urgency like this. I have to respond now. Now again, when it is an emergency, this is good. Is that true? But when we need to have a creative conversation with our husband, or a settled conversation with a teenager, or respond to our not regulated toddler in a regulated way, right? Urgent is bad. So one of my favorite lines is, this is important, very important, but it's not urgent. Urgent versus important. You're with me? Okay, you can figure out your own line, by the way. And also you can pick your favorite one. Guess which is the best line? The one that works. I always tell my supervisor, I don't know, I did this funny intervention, like I responded this way to my client, or I did this, I'm not sure, was it right? What do you think? It was like so different. What's the thing she asks? What was the response? Oh, right. Did it work or did it not work? Did it get to the goal? Did it not get to the goal? Second line. I have spoken about this before, that sometimes, especially if I'm working, you know, this happened a lot when I was working at that high school, where I would have connection, let's say, with the teenagers, right? And then certain information would have been very powerful to pass on. Does this make sense? That would be really powerful, that I have information about such and such teenager, and now how are we going to implement this into the high school, right? It feels good. I have information. I'm accessing information. People are talking to me. I am an important person. And also, I matter here, right? Kids are talking to me. I have access to information that is going to be useful to the staff. But I also knew if I became the dispenser of information, what would happen to my impact on the girls? 0. If I wasn't trusted, if I didn't hold what they shared with me in my heart, I would have no impact on them. Power is different than impact. Sometimes you can say something to your husband and it feels so powerful. It's like you wish you got an Oscar for it. Did anyone hear? Did you hear? But is that what's going to give you impact? Is that what's going to reach your heart to his heart? And it's going to leave real long-term impact. Power isn't always impact. In fact, sometimes we have to sacrifice power for impact. It's hard. It takes a lot of humility and a lot of strength, right? But do you know the difference between powerful people and people with impact? Yes, effectiveness. But do you know what I'm talking about? In that moment, ask yourself, is this for impact or is this for power? Even though this feels powerful somewhere here, is this going to make the impact I want? And this one, my last snap outline, but come up with your own. Be creative. You have your own best snap outline. Because you know your worst snaps and your best outs. You are your best expert at this. Not me. I'm trying to become my best expert at this. And do what I can for others to help them. But it's within you. You know it. Sometimes we want our kids to respond to us. All the time we want our kids to respond to us. It's the worst feeling when our kids don't respond to us. It's embarrassing. It feels out of control. It just feels like you're just a meaningless mother. Have we felt that before? Yep. And sometimes it feels really urgent that respond to us right away. Is this true? Especially if we have other things going on in our life, like work, other responsibilities. We need them to get dressed and get on the bus, right? We need them to clear their plates so that they could be responsible adults. But one of my favorite lines is, do we want good responders, or do we want to raise good adults? And the relationship is part of that adult question. In that moment, even though you might get the response that you need with that powerful whatever you're going to do in your body, is that your long-term goal? Is it the response or is it the person? So are we raising respondents or are we raising people that we're going to also want to have a relationship with? So I told you that I was going to tell you 3 things about the mind. Do we remember the 4 things with the body? Are we still together? It's a lot of information. I told you, I wanted to do the most I could for you. I squish it into these 2 lectures. Are we still here? Can we go on? We're not going to go without the heart, because that would be too heartbreaking. Oh. The mind is 3 things, right? But one is memories. Memory, language, and I'm about to get to the 3rd. So I'm going to share with you, I did some self-disclosure last week when I told you about how I fell in love with Israel. And somebody asked me, like, wow, like that was really, you don't usually do personal? And I was really moved that you did personal, and I said, I loved it. First of all, I love sharing my heart with you ladies, because I love the response, and I just love sharing with you. But after my Israel experience, I wanted to like go to the rooftops and scream out, I'm in love with this land. So I wanted to say it. It felt amazing. So I'm going to tell you one more personal thing today. I'm just, liking this, so I'm going to go with it for now unless I get a response. That's not good, so then we'll change it. I'm taking risks. You should know that I'm going to tell you this at the end, that you should know. Remind me, somebody. You should know? Yes? Okay. I'm trusting it to your memory. Last year, I did another training, but it was on relationships. And I did many different levels of it. And can I tell you a secret? It was really hard for me. Why was it hard for me? Because I have a lot of noise in my head about relationships. I've been talking about it. I went to graduate school. It was my focus, was relationships. My dissertation was about marriage, the marital satisfaction after having children. I give lectures on it. I write. I read about it. I have stuff. My brain is filled. My heart's filled. I have ideas. It's like alive in there. So when I went into this, especially part 1, I was resistant. I'm like, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that. I'm like, I often analyze everything, right? But I was really not taking it in because it was just not matching with all my schemas. It was really not fitting in nicely. It was too uncomfortable. And I just kept on wanting to fit it in and make it fit all nice into already the schemas and mindsets that I have. And it was very hard for me. I love being a student. I know it's crazy because I spent so many years being one, but now that it's a choice, and it was always a choice, but now that it's a real choice and it augments the way I'm able to love another and give to another and treat another, I love going to them. So I often love being a student to new things. But here, because I had so much information and so much feeling already, it was hard for me to be humble. In fact, as I'm telling you this, I have some embarrassment sharing it, but I feel safe enough with you ladies. And I feel that safety in the way you're responding to me, right? By the way, this is what it means to feel safe. It's just because I know that there is trust and there is connection, so it's safe to share with you. This is all it is in a relationship. It's right here, right now. You are able to make me feel safe. So there I am, and I'm like, day 1 is over. And this is many days commitment, weeks. And I'm like, either I'm going to be frustrated the whole time, or I have to just let go and take it in. This was scary for me. It was really hard. So I had to kind of empty, and go in completely open, saying, okay, I know you're an expert in this. You have things to teach me I know I need to know. I'll add it later. But now I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to take you in. So I had to kind of forget or unremember or just let go or put aside what I already knew so that I could learn something completely different. I talk about this in my relationship classes. There is a line. Rabbi Schwartz talks about, has anyone been here to my elements class, the 4 elements? Fire, earth, maybe we'll do it one day. It's a fun topic, that all of us are made of some element, fire, earth, wind, and water. And your neshama is through, it's actually in Rambam, and Rabbi Rambam talks about it way before the Orientals spoke about it. So it's actually really ideas in the Torah, that every element and everything is made out of one of these elements. All 4 elements, but we have a main one. It's a fascinating one, but there is a 5th element. What's the 5th element? It's the element of Ein, nothingness. There is a place inside where there is complete quiet and nothingness. Has anyone ever heard the line, Chachma miyayin yavo? Chachma comes from nothingness. This is what it means, is that if we're able to have complete quiet and take out all our preconceived notions, we're able to learn something new. So I'm telling you an idea that's a complete contradiction to the first one, which is memories. And this is really a secret to relationships. When you are in an argument, especially when you've had this argument 98 times, try to see it from a mind that's not as full, that's not so sure about the conclusion, that's not so clear about your point of view, that's not already so settled on the schema, oh, this is the right way. Try to see what is something new I can learn here. What is my husband saying that I haven't heard yet? What is my child telling me? You know how often mothers ask me, what does my child need from me? What does she want? You know how many times has the child told her? She's just hearing it the same way she's heard it before, because that fits. It's more comfortable that way. It doesn't rattle us. We just want to fit it. So this is really a much bigger idea that I just wanted to tell you, is if you can find some quiet or nothingness in the mind. So there's 3 things, right? Memories, language, snap outlines, and some quiet. And this is where I'm going to talk about the topic of time. How come I didn't tell you, when it comes to the body, to take your time? Take your time. Just take your time. Move away and take your time. Why am I saying it in the topic of mind and not body? Because sometimes when you're activated and you take your time and you're angry and you're rageful and you're upset, what happens with that time? You get more angry. You get more activated. You bring in more reasons to be upset, and then this, and then last week that. Your rage builds. Time only works if your intention is to soothe. That is the only time it works. It's mindful time. It's not just time. It is right now I'm going upstairs so that I am no longer in this active state. It is not just so that I can go upstairs, because it has to have mindfulness as part of it. You're with me? Should we go on? I feel like that heart is like part 3, but are we together? Can we pull this off? Okay. This is a scene that I've given before. Okay. So right now, remember the line that hurt the lady when the husband said he doesn't want to go for Shabbat and she never goes anyway to visit her family? The line is the way he said it. Then we have to unravel it back. Okay, we're going to go back to her now, have her in the back of our minds, and talk about a little girl. It is 9 p.m. Your daughter is 9 years old, and she's in bed. You have younger kids, they're sleeping, and older kids. It's not relevant for this topic. The electricity goes off. She starts to cry. She's afraid of the dark. She's crying. You don't know why the electricity is off. Your husband is home. What do you do? What do you do? This is before you come to this lecture. But you need the electricity to be on. And you're downstairs with your husband. You scream at your husband. What happened? Why is the electricity down? Right? And your daughter is screaming upstairs, but your husband's not really moving fast enough because he's in the middle of a phone call. How do you feel right now about this phone call? He's showing you, you can't even see it, it's so dark, but from the light, he's like, do you care what kind of phone call this is? Your daughter is screaming upstairs. What are you doing? Screaming at your husband. Do you care who's on the other line? Maybe this is like a business deal he's about to close. Does it matter to you? What do you need? You need the electricity on, and no, that's not what you need. What do you need? You want your husband to drop the phone and run to turn the electricity on. Is this the particular need? What's your daughter doing? Screaming upstairs. What is your focus on? Now, is it bothering you somewhere in your heart that your daughter is screaming upstairs? It's bothering you. Where is your energy focused? Making your husband turn it back on. Your energy is focused. Ladies, now we're on the heart, so this is the hardest one, so you have to you have to help me do this. Your daughter is screaming upstairs, that's bothering you, right? But your husband's on the phone. And it feels like he's on the phone too slowly. Yes? Everything is slower. He's talking way too calmly. If he just rushed faster, you would just be better. You want him to be nervous with you. He's just not nervous enough, right? And you are screaming at him to turn the electricity off, and your daughter is screaming upstairs, and it's a lot of tension in the room, and she's crying upstairs. Why do I keep on pointing to her? Because she's the one in your heart. She is the one in your heart. What's bothering you really is not that he's on the phone. The electricity being off right now doesn't feel so urgent. But she is screaming upstairs. She's nervous. What does she need? In that moment, the body would say what she needs is the light. But really, what does she need? Reassurance. Good. She's keeping us in the body, reminding us what the body is. What she needs is her daddy to be off the phone. But as you scream at her daddy, what's happening to her? She's feeling more nervous. And then you start screaming at her. Just be quiet, we're trying to fix it, right? I'm telling your dad. No, we wouldn't do that because we learned from Dr. Perlman, we do not do that. We don't blame. But we start screaming at her, and she's feeling worse now. And then he opens the door and walks out of the house. Why is he doing that? Because he needs quiet. But why do you feel he's doing it? Despite you. This is all about you. Now this is all about you and not turning the electricity off. But meanwhile, what's happening to your daughter? She's screaming upstairs. Ladies, this is what we do with our emotions. Our emotion is the daughter that's screaming upstairs, that all it wants from us is some attention, some reassurance, some hope. And all we do is pay attention to everything around us to fix it, and all we do the whole time is avoid the very thing that bothers us. we cannot even pay attention to. We're just, you fix it. No, make this better. Go, make this go away. But there she is. All she needs is your attention. All she needs is your reassurance. All she needs is a hug. It's going to be okay. It's not an emergency. Nothing bad has happened. This is not the end of the world. So she's screaming and our hearts are screaming, and all we're doing is raging, blaming, angry, despair, not even paying attention to what's in our heart. So I'll tell you something that's pretty shocking, that when we think we are expressing our heart, we're actually not. We're actually in that rage, escaping our heart. We don't want to be in it. It's too uncomfortable. We want to not be there. Rage is an escape from what's actually happening inside. So is blame, especially blame. Here, you take this. I don't like this, you take it. You hold it. It's hot, be careful. Don't be careful, you deserve it. That's blame. Despair is there's no way out, I'm stuck. This is intolerable, there's no way out. There is a stunning language in the Ketubah. It says, Ve'al yivrechu, and don't run away. Ve'al yalimu, and don't hide. Lo ze mizu ve'lo ze mizeh. Not him from her and not her from him. Don't run away and don't hide. That's in the Ketubah. Stunning? Somebody once said, oh, I wonder if the Ketubah is romantic. I feel like the Torah defines as what romantic is. Don't hide from each other. And don't run away from each other. But how can we share with each other when we don't ourselves yet even know what's bothering us? We only come to that line of, it's the way he said it that bothered me, after we unravel. Really, that's what's in our hearts the entire time. So with a heart, I'm going to tell you 3 things also. Number 1, see what's in your heart. Actually see what bothers you. Identify it. Name it. But don't just give me words like I'm angry, I'm hurt. This is another secret of therapy. I don't mind giving away secrets of therapy because I want you to have them. The more I can tell you, the better it is. Is anytime anyone is telling me anything that's hurtful, as I'm feeling the hurt with her or with them, I am, as they're telling it to me, looking for the resolution. No such thing as just telling me pain without some resolution in it. As I'm hearing about it, I'm already thinking, what will make this better? Because otherwise it's just indulging in pain. But sharing pain for the purpose, with hope of resolution, you're not stuck. The first one is like when Hannah wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink. It was just in despair. She didn't have children and she gave up. And the second is, no, this can be different. What do I need here? What will take away my pain? Is if I do something about it. At least if I go, and at least if I ask, if I beseech God from my deepest place to give me what I need. Sometimes we can't fix the light right away. Sometimes we can't make somebody else do it, but all she needed is reassurance, hope, a hug. So this is a big one, and I'm actually right after Chagim, if you're interested, if you signed up your name, I gave out a sheet. And if someone's listening online, I'm starting actually a website, and you can email me at tperlmansyd, T like Tamar, Perlman, Perlman, PSYD @gmail, to start a workshop on emotion regulation. So really, I do 7 classes just on this, of how to identify that feeling. But I'm just telling it to you so you could have it. Identify the thing that you will tell him bothered you before the mess up. It's actually more vulnerable than saying, oh, you're such a... Your daughter, she's struggling with homework. You want to scream at her, just do it already. You're just going to be slow your whole life. Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
I don't know why she said it.
She's terrible. Is she evil? No, she's just worried and frustrated. And she feels helpless. She feels stuck. She feels like, oh, somebody fix this, get the light on. But really what's bothering her? Oh, I am worried about my daughter. What will help me here? Look for the resolution. What will help me here? Oh, maybe if I help her more, if she gets more help, then you start to get more creative. You could access things that you couldn't access before. Can it always be taken care of? Are there some things that have a no to them? Yes?
And that's okay.
So what could you do for that? Let's say the light is not on. What else can we give her? Support. Support. Find supports. Your heart needs to be named. The feeling needs to be named. Understand it better. Make it more and more fine. What do I need here? He hurt me by the way he said it. It makes me feel like he doesn't care. I need to feel more care. I need to tell him what I need to feel is more care. The more you make it concrete, what is he more likely to respond to, by the way? When it's this mountain of rage that he's going to have to protect himself against and not to feel like a monster, or when it's something that he can maybe bite, maybe chew, maybe give you half of what you asked for. Does this make sense? When you do this process, it also separates what's yours and what's his. And what he can do for you and maybe what he can't do for you. Some of your pain about him not going to the family may be that parts of you also don't want to go to the family. But it's all mushed in together when you throw it at him and he wants to then throw it back at you. You're with me? So when you do this figuring out what's bothering you with the resolution within it, you are more likely to actually get the resolution. Number one, name the heart. Name it. See it. Try to define it better. You won't get it right away, but keep on trying to make it clearer. Find supports from friends, from people that could support you in the areas that can't get resolved. You're in the middle of this electricity thing. You get a phone call from a sibling who's been trying to have a baby for 8 years. Or from a friend that needs to be engaged. Or from a friend that was getting answers about an MRI scan. And she tells you, good news. She's pregnant, she's engaged, the MRI was clean. How do you feel? 20 seconds ago, you really felt like it was the end of the world. He said something to you that you literally thought, this is it. If I don't have this, I have nothing. Nothing else matters to me. If he doesn't respond to me now, I have nothing. I'm like dead. Nothing matters. It's the end of the world. 20 seconds later, you get a phone call. What do you feel? You literally forget the other feeling. You feel elation, you feel excitement, you feel relief. In the moment of emergency, your heart gets hijacked by one feeling and you think that's all of who you are. You're not your feeling. We are neshamas. Our feelings are just parts of us. And I'm a therapist. And I'm saying we're not our feelings. Feelings are just parts of us because at any moment a new feeling can come in. So you know how the heart has chambers? Your heart has many chambers. Your feeling has many parts to it. When you're overwhelmed by this feeling, nothing can help me now. I feel like it's the end of the world. When it's not the case, right? God forbid, sometimes there are situations that are the end of the world. I'm not talking about them. When it's not, just remind yourself, this is not all of who I am. I have other feelings in me too. Name your heart. See all of your heart. Realize you're not just one feeling. And then the last one is use your heart. What do I mean by that? It says, Chazal tell us, literally, listen to these words. Think about it in terms of the heart, mind, and body, that love pushes away flesh. In a way, like as the body expands during pregnancy, it like literally the love is pushing away flesh. As Paro's daughter, her hand stretched out to grab Moshe, we are able to overcome our body when we connect to the love that we have towards others. So while our bodies are strong, our love is stronger. So when you know your son is going to be so hurt when you're going to tell him that line, and your husband is going to be so embarrassed, try to see that feeling before the hurt. You'll use it afterwards. See if you can feel it. Use your heart before the hurt. And the second way that you can use your heart is remembering the relationship. The relationship also matters to you. Your heart, what's between the ruach is the heart level. The relationship between two people matters. So we have the 4 S's of the body. We have the mind, memory, snap out lines, and the quiet, trying to learn something new. And we have the heart, learning what is actually bothering you, literally. What is it? With a trying resolution, what will make me feel better here? By the way, does it have to resolve it? It's the same thing like we said about a step at a time. Just even if it makes you a tad, he doesn't have to suddenly become Mr. Sensitive, a word. But if he's just a bit more caring, gives you something that makes you feel a bit better, because in those moments when our body takes over, we want the biggest deal, the highest level. Do we have 3 more minutes so I could tell you about how this connects to our neshama? Chava, I'm going to read to you about Chava's sin. I'm going to read to you what Hashem said, and I'm going to read to you what Chava heard. You with me? And I want you to notice the difference. I'm going to tell you the differences, and we're going to wrap up with our neshama, because we can't talk about the mind, the heart, and the body and not talk about the neshama, because all of this has purpose in it. And God caused to grow from the ground all sorts of trees that were good to look at and good to eat from. Does this sound nice? This is in Bereshit, in Perek Bet. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it's just mentioned there. And God commanded Adam, saying, from all the trees you may eat. Yes, eat. I sometimes think like it was like a Sephardi thing. Eat, eat. Like it was said twice, Not just like, eat it, eat it. Twice Hashem said, you may eat, yes, eat. But from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, do not eat from it, for the day you will eat from it, you will surely die. Okay, this is from Rabbi Foreman's book. This is what Chava paraphrases. Okay, listen carefully. And the woman said to the serpent, from the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. But from the fruit of the tree that's in the middle of the garden, God said not to eat it and not to touch it, lest we may die. 4 differences, what are they? Okay, one is, you noticed right away, you will surely die, and the second one, we may die. Okay, maybe he won't get so angry. We don't see the consequence so clearly. It's like fuzzy. He said, I don't want this. Your child has told you, I don't like it when you do that. But the consequence is fuzzy. What's another one? Was this tree in the middle? It wasn't. But it became the center of her attention. It became the middle. The one in the middle, that's the one that matters the most. The one I can't have. This is the first woman. Right? This is it. The one in the middle, it became the center. All of this matters to us. Of course it matters that he works and that he provides, or that this or that, but this is the most important thing to meet today. Of course, it matters that our child is able to do this and that, but today that he's not responding to me is the middle. 2 more things, 2 more differences. God said, eat, enjoy it. It was beautiful, it was bountiful, there was a lot there, but to her it became secondary. What I have is secondary, I don't see it so clearly. It's like, okay, we can eat it. Okay. It wasn't like it was bountiful. There's a lot there. Do we see this? And there's one more. You can't even touch it. Making it a bit worse than it is. Did he say anything about touching? Ladies, I want to tell you something, and this is the thing that I was going to say, by the way. Sometimes, when I am in these situations where I have to, either in any of my relationships, with my children, with my husband, with my clients, with my friends, in any relationship that matters to me, where I know I have to bring in some of that control, some of that bigness, some of that humility, I actually sometimes, one of my visions is you. I actually think about how I want to bring in the koach. I want to be a source of koach, of movement in this world. And how can I preach something and then not support it? Even when it's so hard, I think about how I just want to do it because I want to make it a tad easier for the world to do it too. So you are one of my inspirations. And I want to tell you a piece that I heard from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson that stuck with me. And we're going to wrap up with this. That every challenge that we come with where we are disconnected in mind, heart, and body, and we reconnect ourselves, we are really impacting our neshamas. There is a reason every challenge that we encounter is there for us. You know, we think, why are we dealing with this? But it's supposed to do something to us. It's supposed to move us, either closer to our bodies, but really that's what we end up doing with it, or closer to our neshamas, to the real reason why we're going through this challenge. Every single challenge. Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson said something incredible that stayed with me. That when Mashiach is going to come, the power, all of the moments where we overcame, it's almost like the above skies will be opened, and over all of our little, big, overcome challenges will be revealed. And those will be the revelations that will bring Mashiach. That everything that when we do it and it's so quiet and so mysterious and no one knows what we just did. And maybe you want to come up here and say, you know, last week I could have done this, but I didn't. But you don't get the applause. But it counts. It counts in Shemaim to a point that it literally builds the roadblock for the ultimate geula. Then we don't longer have to be stuck, not just in our bodies, but even in the confusion when it's so hard to reach the mind. In fact, that's the ultimate galut. Paro is from the language of Oref. Oref is the part of the back of our neck that controls involuntary movement. We were slaves to our own involuntary movement, to just our body. And redemption was getting out of being slaves to not being able to reach our minds. Every time we overcome, I just want to tell you that I will know it. I will feel it for you. You can whisper it out into the world, and you can share it in your hearts, and somehow it's going to matter. It's going to matter right now already. I feel your future selves being higher than where you are right now, because the healing is already inside you. Ladies, I give us a bracha that our challenges should not be so big, but whatever they are, they should bring us to our higher self, and that higher self should bring us to the ultimate geula. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you.